Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for yet more dedicated Legacy action. As with the rest of this week, today I'm going to be playing a Painter's Servant deck. Yesterday we played the Mono Red Painter's Servant deck, today we are playing the Mono Blue Painter's Servant deck, which is essentially like 8 cast but with like an infinite combo built in. The infinite combo being Painter's Servant names a colour, so all the cards in our opponent's library are that colour. Grindstone mills 2 if they're the same colour, it keeps going. So these two just let you mill your opponent out in one turn. Aside from that, we've got the standard 8 cast stuff. So we've got all these baubles, we've got Mox Opals and Lotus Petals, so we can power things out. And then we can dig into our deck using Thought Monitor, Thought Cast and Emery. And then we've got a little bit of protection from Force of Will. And then we've got ways of winning the game through damage, which is our Kappa Cannoneers and our Urza Saga. Urza Saga also being able to tutor out any of our 0 drops, but more importantly, our Grindstone and a few little silver bullets. So we can play a pretty serviceable Saga game off of Ancient Tomb, and we can also just go through our deck and try and combo them out. That's more or less it. It should be relatively straightforward. Now, the sideboard, we have a bunch of blasts. I'm surprised there aren't blasts in the main from this list I found, but obviously I've not played this deck, so whatever they've been doing, they've obviously had time to work on the numbers. So we've got a load of blasts. There's a lot of good red cards in the format, so I'm expecting these to come in quite often. Then we've got 4 Force of Negation for some of the unfair decks in the format that we want to be able to interact with early on to stop ourselves losing, because we're going to be a relatively quick deck. But we also want to be able to interfere with what our opponents doing if they are a little bit faster. Brazen Borrower is just a nice catch-all answer, and the fact that it's a creature and then an instant sorcery rather than an artifact like the rest of our deck means we can get rid of some of the problem things that mess with artifacts. Surge Extraction for graveyard removal. A couple of Dismembers when you really need to kill stuff. And then a Karn Sign of Urza, which is a slow card advantage engine, but what it does do is it provides a lot of big bodies. So it just gives you more Urza Saga tokens. So the idea is you use this and you just keep generating threats. So against control or something like that, when you play a slower game, you just have this just churning out threat after threat after threat. And we have a Pithing Needle, which I'm surprised isn't in the main, but obviously somebody's done the maths and worked out where it's supposed to be. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it. So we're just going to hop right into a league and see how we go. Before we do that though, if you could just scroll down and hit that subscribe button, it doesn't cost you anything and it really helps me out. Alright, let's get into a league. Alright, so into round 1. Our opponent is a Yorion deck, so it's going to be Death and Taxes, or it could be the Abzan pile, or it could be the blue pile. There's a lot of options it could be, but we're going to get a feeling that it's going to be a slow deck rather than a combo deck, or it could be the Yorion Breakfast deck. As for our hand, we have an Urza Saga on turn 1 that we can then turn into creatures on the turn after that, as well as being able to tutor for our combo so we can have a win on turn 3 if it's going to be one of those sorts of games. So this seems like a snap keep to me. Caracas Mother of Runes. This suggests to me that our opponent's playing Death and Taxes, which means the main thing we're worrying about is a Swords to Plowshares here. The potential for our opponent to have Wastelands is also very high. So we're still going to play out this Urza Saga. Do we use the Urza Bauble now? I'm not entirely convinced that we have to. We have this Force of Will that isn't doing anything, so I think it's correct to use this now. A Thalia. Okay, so the Thalia means we definitely want to play out the Lotus Petal. And I think because we have a redundant painter, we just cast this now and we name blue. So this turns on our Force of Will, and it also means that we have the combo in a couple of turns. Okay, so we can pitch a Lotus Petal to Force of Will, which is going to feel pretty good if we can do that. But we're just saving this for the thing that interrupts our win at this point, because our opponent is not going to be able to clock us before our clock goes off. Our opponent's tapping their Caracas for a Swords to Plowshares. How much do I care about this Swords to Plowshares? I think we're fine with this for now because we have the backup painter. This is a little bit awkward, I won't lie. We play the Painter's Servant out, and then we have the Force of Will again. Cast this, name blue. Do we play the Lotus Petal out, or do we keep it for Force of Will if that's the thing that we're interested in? Because we know they have a Thalia in hand, if I want to play out the Lotus Petal, I think I should play out now. So we're going to play this out now. We can always pitch the redundant Painter's Servant if we need to, or if they spend the whole turn using removal again. Okay, so there's Wasteland. A little bit awkward. That's certainly one of the ways we could come undone in this match. Okay, so then we have an Urza Saga. this will find the other half of our combo. If they have a third wasteland, then that's annoying, but there's not a great deal we can do about that. Nice to draw a land next turn so we can have the Urza Saga making construct. A third wasteland? Sure. It's going to be one of those games, I think. So we know our opponent has the Thalia in hand. Let's pop that. Okay, so let's play this out. We play this out because we know they have a Thalia. There's a question of whether or not we hit the Thalia if they play it this turn with our Force of Will. I don't think we do. I think we just let this go. It can't attack and it doesn't pressure us too much mana-wise. Now this could come back to bite me, but I think the plan in here is just to draw our combo. So we could play out a second Painted Servant, but I'd rather keep the Cannoneer in hand as our Force of Will target, and they have to tap their Mother of Runes to get the Thalia to deal us damage. So I think we can just pass and give it a few more turns before we have to worry about anything. The Field of Ruin here, we still have another island, so that's okay. Okay, so they're just in a holding pattern here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can cast this now, which I think is probably worth doing. Okay, so now we have this, which automatically puts a counter on itself. This should be very difficult for them to answer. And I also have a Force of Will backed up in case they have something like a Council's Judgment, which is unlikely, but possible. And then this can clock our opponent very quickly, because it's a very unreasonable Magic the Gathering card, I would say. The big turtle. So any artifact we draw from now on is going to power this guy up, and they're not going to be able to remove it. So we can play out a second Painter and have the Mox able to pitch. I think that is a better play. So taps for blue, taps for blue. We just want to keep growing our Cannoneer. Yep, and we go to attacks. This guy usually wins the game in 2 or 3 attacks as a general rule. Because of our current setup, it's probably going to be 3. But our opponent is a long way off of having any mana to actually interact with our Cannoneer in any reasonable fashion. And their deck is not going to give us some sort of clock to worry about. Okay, we have a win on the board. So let's play out this. We need to pay 1 for the Thalia attacks as well. But we have the mana to pay. Okay, so it's going to skip it up. Excellent. So that went quite well. Our opponent is going to probably be bringing in Kataki. So we need to be able to kill Kataki. So we're going to need these 2 Dismembers, that's for sure. The Pithing Needle can shut off Wastelands, which is something I'm quite happy to try and interact with. I think this game is possibly going to come down to us making Kappa Cannoneers. The Scion of Urza is a slower card, but we can keep pumping these guys out and drawing more cards. So I think that's probably worth doing. I don't know if the Brazen Borrower is going to be good here, but it's a non-artifact spell. And I think maybe not having some non-artifacts might be quite useful, given the fact that they're going to just bring in every little piece of artifact hate they have in their entire decks. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards we're looking at here. Now the question is, what do we remove? Because they have some things that are just a real problem for us, I think we have to keep the Force of Wills in. And then the Soul Guide Lantern isn't going to do anything here, so we can get rid of that. The Shadow Spear is going to be an important thing to race. The Spell Bomb can bounce some problem permanents for us, so I like that. The Kappa Cannoneer is something that's going to be impossible for them to answer if we get it down, so I like this. The Emery is going to be worse in the face of a Karaka, so I think we can at least trim 1 or 2 of those, even though it's an important part of our engine. And if we're trimming those, I think we can probably trim a couple of Baubles, or maybe a Bauble and a Petal, I think. Or is the Petals going to be better than the Mox Opals, given that I'm looking at Kataki coming in for our opponent? That's the logic I'm working with here, at least. So we've still got the full suite of our combo in. Like, there is an option for bringing in the Blue Blasts so that we can paint a servant and destroy anything we want. I'm not opposed to that, but they don't have anything to hit with my Blue Blast, so I'm not really sure that's going to do us any good. I think we're going to submit like this and see how we go. So this hand will give us 2 draw steps to find a second land. 1, 2, no, give us 3 draw steps to find a second land. So I think we can keep this on the basis of that being 3 draw steps. And we do still have a little bit of mana to mess around with. So we're going to get draw for our turn, the Bauble, and the second draw for our turn. And we can play Saga, playing Pithing Needle on Wasteland, so that we don't have to worry about losing our land here. So I think we can keep this. Let it be known that it's a bit shaky, but I think it's fine. This is going to be Vial or Mother of Runes on turn 1. Neither. Okay. So I think we can play this one out. Play this out, and we name Wasteland. And then because they are a Thalia deck, we will play these out. And because we don't have a second blue card, we will activate the Bauble now. Stoneforge Mystic. Sure. That's one of the cards I might be interested in Force of Willing, because it's the only thing that can provide a strong clock. We did not draw a second blue card, so we don't have to make that choice. It's out of our power. What we can do here is just make bigger guys. But making bigger guys in a Cauldron token is not easy. I assume it's the Cauldron they're getting here, unless they've got some sort of the sword of blowing up artifacts. Cauldron complete, sure. We have a Painter's Servant here. So if we play out the Painter's Servant now, next turn we have the win through a Cauldron with Force of Will backup. That seems good to me. And blue. So we have Force of Will here, and then next turn we untap, we get Grindstone, we grind them out. So if they're tapping out to put the Cauldron into play, that's perfect for us, because they'll only have 1 mana maximum to interact. They could still have a Solitude though, which is something we have to watch out for. Not sure we can necessarily play around it if we're getting clocked by the Cauldron. Okay, so they can put their guy in and hold up Swords to Plowshares here. So just have the Swords to Plowshares first. I think we do Force of Will this. The question is, what do we pitch? Do we pitch the Khan, or do we pitch the Seat of the Synod? I think we pitch the Seat of the Synod here. Or Synod if you prefer. So they might have done this because they have other removal spells, so they hit us with the first one and see what happens there, and then they follow up with the second one rather than putting the Cauldron first. They can't port us off of being able to do this. They can't waste. Okay, so they're just done. Excellent. So that was a very quick 1-0, which is great to see. Let's go on to round 2. So this hand is a bunch of redraws, and that's it. So I think just mulliganing, because I don't know what this hand is going to be. So I think we should just mulligan this one, because this is pretty much just a mulligan on its own, because all the cards are going to refresh. This hand has 1 redraw and some mana. I don't actually like this one very much. Like if we draw a Painter's Servant, it's pretty good, but it is missing any sort of substantive action here. I think we'll mulligan. Okay, so this hand seems a little bit better. So we can keep this one, get rid of one of our Painter's Servants. We get to make turn 1 Emery. We need to put something back, so it's probably going to be the Shadow Spear here. Yeah, so we make turn 1 Emery. That can't be bad. Volcanic Island. This gives me the impression... Okay, yeah, it's just straight up Delver Secrets. So, Seat of the Synod. This can be Wastelanded. Lotus Petal. This costs blue. And we can pay a daze with the Lotus Petal here. So do we get? We hit a redraw. We can play the second Emery, but I don't think that's worth doing. So the best play our opponent has is flip this, Lightning Bolt our guy, Wasteland our Seat. Expressive Iteration is the card they revealed. It's a pretty strong one. Some might say too strong. Brainstorm. Okay, so this isn't the Wasteland Lightning Bolt turn. Our opponents finished resolving their Brainstorm. And they played a non-fetch land. So they're pondering, so this might just be taking the one card they wanted, or taking the card in the Brainstorm and then they've shuffled with the Ponder would be my assumption. Unless their hand was super stacked, in which case why are you casting the Ponder there? So it must be a case of shuffling. Yeah, so they shuffle their library. As predicted. Thought Monitor, this is 7, 6, 5. 4, 3. Cast this Bauble. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My maths holds. Because the way you do affinity on here is you cast a spell and then you pay the costs. 1, 2. This would be a very good target for a daze. There it is. We cannot pay. Because we didn't have another mana source in hand there, like we could go to our next turn and then crack the petal. Okay, Dragon's Rage chance. So what we could do there is go to our next turn and then our next turn crack the petal, activate Emery to bring back petal to cast the Thought Monitor. But spending a whole other turn not doing anything, I don't want to show our Painter's Servant if we can avoid it. And also that entire line gets blown up by a Wasteland where our opponent's seeing a number of cards as turn because we already have an Expressive Iteration we know about. Lightning Bolt, sure. So we have a backup Emery, so that's not too... And that's the Lightning Bolt that's not hitting our face, which is something. Surprised we haven't seen the Dragon's Rage channel yet. Okay, so it's our turn. We've drawn a Lotus Petal. This is good because it makes our Emery cost less. Let's play this out. Play this out. We can cast this for a single blue. Looks like our opponent's thinking on this one. Okay, so we resolved our Emery. What do we get? A Lotus Petal and an Ether Spellbomb. So we can take 2 to deploy the Painter's Servant. Or we can crack the Lotus Petal to deploy the Painter's... I think cracking the Lotus Petal here is... Wait, so this is 6 on the Thought Monitor. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would be another one. So I think we have to do it this way just to preserve our life total here. We don't really want to name blue against our opponent's deck because they have Force of Wills. So I think we have to name green or something. Just something so we don't empower their Force of Wills. Because we're only drawing 1 card a turn. So well, we can draw multiple cards a turn. But because we don't have a Force of Will and our opponent has a full grip of cards, feels like it's best to not give them options to pitch lands or whatever. Short spells to 9. So our opponent's playing this expressive iteration that we know they have in their hand, I would assume. Murktide Regent. Okay, that's pretty bad for us. 8, 9, 10, 11. Sure. So how do we beat this guy? We have to put the Ether Spellbomb into play. So I think we play this out. This way we can kind of do this and make our Saga token. So we'll cast this. If they have a counter spell for this, then I think we lose. So we can make a token, that doesn't make any difference. They just Force of Will us. What do they exile? Do we get to see anything interesting? No, it's the expressive iteration we knew about. So we just take the damage on the next turn and we lose. Sure. Murktide Regent, still legal after all this time. Let's have a look. Oh, Dismember doesn't seem great here, but all these blue blasts seem decent enough. Brazen Borrower is fine. Like Dismember just can't be right here. Pithing Needle can name Wasteland, which I don't hate. Solgar Lantern has a lot of text here. Ether Spellbomb is fine here. So they're going to be bringing in a bunch of meltdowny type stuff. So trimming back on some of our 0 drops that stick, especially the ones that stick around and play, is probably okay. So get rid of those. 1, 2, 3. The Kappa Cannoneer is quite expensive, so it might be difficult to resolve. Like, it is lights out if we do resolve it, but we probably have to bin off Thought Monitor for the same logic there. And it's a case of whether or not we want the Brazen Borrower in or not. So we can definitely do this. Do we want the Brazen Borrower in favour of any of these things? Because these are kind of our engines, really. And we need all these. I guess we can trim one of these in case they're playing a Null Rod. You have Brazen Borrower in for that. And that's 60. It's a relatively coherent game plan, I think. We have all these blasts. We have our combo in here. We still have 3 Kappa Cannoneers to beat down with, and we have the Emery plan. We sort of lowered our top end a little bit because we don't want to get caught with like dazes and things on our big plays. Just like what happened with the Thought Monitor there, we kind of felt like we had to go. All right, let's submit. What does this hand do? Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can Thought Cast on turn 1. So that seems good. Leaves us with a bunch of stuff in play. So play this out. Play this out. Play this. Play this. So we play this guy out, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can play the Painter's Servant out, and then Thought Cast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can play the Painter's Servant out, I think, here. We name red with this one, I think, to turn on all our blasts. Okay, so we got a 2 for 1 off of that. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we don't have enough to play the Thought Cast this turn, but we've got 2 for 1 in hand, and our opponent just 2 for 1 themselves, so we're slightly up on cards here. If we can resolve the Thought Cast. What do they pitch? Expressive Iteration is a pretty good one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we don't have enough for this, but we can cast this one. So we'll have 1 floating. Play for the days. Okay. So I think we can play this one out. We don't need to cash in our baubles just yet, I think. I think what we do is we can play out the Kappa Cannoneer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can play the Kappa Cannoneer with the ability to play around days next turn. That seems alright to me. Obviously, if they try and do a meltdown for 0, we cash these in. Okay, we have the Force of Will, which is nice. Play this Otawara, so we can play around the days. 2, 3, 4, and then we probably just tap this, so we only have to pay with one of these in case we get Meltdown. Oh, we should have tapped with more to leave mana up. Sorry, that was my bad. I was trying to play around the days and I just completely messed that one up. All right, should have paid with all these and had this up. So basically, it's kind of I was either playing around days or I was playing around Meltdown. Seeing our opponent didn't do anything. Okay, we're going to lose our Urza Saga here. Energy Flux. We have to hit this one with a Force of Will. Can they force back or daze back? They cannot. Excellent. So now we start drawing some cards. A Grindstone. Let's make some guys. So this will pump this. And then we go and fetch something. If we get the Shadow Spear here, I don't think they can beat the life gain we're going to get off of this. So we basically have this unblockable growing guy with lifelink. So even if they resolve an Energy Flux, we are still fine. I think we cast the Bauble now, just in case we draw a Force of Will type effect. There's no point casting the second Cannoneer there in the face of knowing that their hate piece is the Energy Flux rather than the Null Rod. They could have all of these things, but... So they have a second Energy Flux, so we can beat this. Okay, so they're Wastelanding this, which is a little bit awkward. We still beat this. If they have follow-up Wastelands, then it might become more difficult. Okay, so we don't pay to prevent that one. Let's just float this so I don't make a mistake here. Pay to prevent this. No. Not that one. Where's the mana in my pool? I made the mistake here. What happened to the mana I put in my pool? Where did it go? I added 2 mana to my pool. What is this? I made a almost... Have I just thrown this game because I don't know how to use Modo properly? What the hell's going on? What happened to my 2 mana? I'm really confused by that one. I have to look it back in the replay. Because all these things were putting on a stack, so my mana shouldn't have emptied from my pool because they were all going on a stack. So where did it go? I don't understand that. None of my other artifacts got saved, so it didn't go into anything. I don't know, I have to check in the replay there. I think we have to concede this game at this point, maybe. I think we just concede. I don't know what happened there. Like, I paid to save the guy, which would have given us 8 damage that turn, which would have put them to 3. So we might still lose that game, even if I didn't have that weird thing that happened there. All right, I guess we go to game 3 and I have to look at that in the replay later on. Right. Okay, we want a die roll for this one. Our opponent's a 60-card deck. We have the ability to play an Urza Saga game from the off, really. This seems fine. Our opponent could be some sort of degenerate combo deck that'll beat us, but I think we're fine. We play out our Saga. We play out Bauble. I think we play all these out because we don't know what our opponent is doing, if they're going to impact the amount of things we can cast. Now, whether or not I activate the Bauble here remains to be seen. Snow-covered Swamp. Dark Ritual. Thoughtseize. So this is a swing and a miss, but they could be doing this into Reanimate and we lose the game. Dark Confidence. Okay, so it's like the sort of the mono black piles of Helm and things like that. So we're not going to crack the Bauble because we don't want the card yet, because all our mana is going to be put into this Urza Saga anyway. Okay, so we're drawing another Urza Saga here. So if we play out this Urza Saga, if we play out this Ancient Tomb now, if we play out the Urza Saga now, then we'll have the mana here to make a token. Then we untap, have the mana there to make that token, and then we play an Ancient Tomb to make the next token. So we're just going to keep playing all these Urza Sagas out because we can activate both of them next turn. And we don't need to crack the Bauble because all our mana is tied up. If we had a Force of Will or a blue card, then maybe we think about doing that. But that's not okay. What was our opponent revealing? A Dark Ritual. Sure, so they can power out Shouldered on this turn, which obviously makes the Urza's Bauble look a lot worse. But we're going to be making some enormous lads in the very near future. Also, cracking the Bauble before making our construct would take us off of Metalcraft. Hymn to Turak. Sure. Losing our Ancient Tomb does mess up our Urza Saga line that we were planning slightly, but we can just use a Lotus Petal to do that. It's not ideal, but it's fine. Okay, they're just conceding because they can't beat these tokens. Oh, they appear to have just conceded the entire round. Okay. Lightwalker. Ah, someone I know. So this player is going to be on Painter's Servant. Which version? I don't know. So what does his hand do? This makes a turn 1 Emery. Sure, we can keep this. Yeah, Mountain. Goblin Welder. No, Student Spirit. Goblin Engineer. Yeah, so as we said, they are on the Painter's Servant deck. So I have a little bit more information than they do here, depending on how much you've been paying attention to. Okay, so we can't play our Painter's Servant out this game, is basically what the gist of things is here. So play this out, play this, play this, play this, play this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not quite enough to play. So we can play out our Emery. Pain Blue. Let's have a look. Either Spellbomb, Mox Opal. Sure. So we didn't really want to cast this Painter's Servant. So I think we will... We are slightly at risk. So they have a Painter's Servant in their hand. So I think we have to crack all of these now. Just get a full new grip of cards on the basis that we might need a Force of Will this turn. Now they are a Pyroblast deck, so that can be an issue for us. Lightning Bolt on the Emery. Sure. So that means we're probably not losing the game this turn. The red painted deck is significantly faster because it's got more acceleration. At the moment I just look like a regular 8 cast deck, so I might be able to get some value later on if they cast a Painted Servant and I just draw the Grindstone and have enough mana to pop it. Force of Will, that's one of the cards we wanted to draw. However, we have slightly hamstrung ourselves by cracking all of those things last turn, which is unfortunate. So this, we don't really want to play this because we can lose the game next turn if we do that. 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, we are. Yeah, I think we are not playing optimally here. Okay, so we know a bunch of cards in their deck. We got another Emery. This is going to go find us a Grindstone, perhaps, if they play a Painted Servant and attack with their Goblin Engineer. That'd be good for us. What they can do is they can two-step it, so they can put the Painted Servant in the bin to get their Grindstone back. Next turn, they can activate the Grindstone, then swap it out for a Painted Servant. Okay, perhaps I should have been trying to counter that spell and slow them down, or I can just try and get cheeky here and get my own Grindstone. Put these on the stack. Out of mana. So getting the Grindstone back. So I think the correct... We don't have the Pithing Needle here, do we? Which is the issue. But we do have the Soul Guide Lantern. So I think we get the Soul Guide Lantern here. This suggests to me that they have a Painted Servant in hand. We can counter that one. So... kind of need blue mana. We don't have another way of getting another artifact here. Play this out. Yeah, I don't really want to cast my Painted Servant because then I die. Which is not really where I want to be. We can't cast the Thought Cast. We can't really do anything. So sacking all those baubles, in hindsight, was a mistake. I've not played 8 casts before. So this is definitely a learning experience. So we've basically shut off their Engineer unless they get a second sort of Engineer type effect going. So there's the Brayers. I think we have to hit this. And I think we're a long way off Kappa Cannoneer here. So I think we just bin off the Kappa Cannoneer. We can't activate our Soul Red Lantern here. We can do is we can get a Lotus Petal off of this and use it to cast a spell. So these Urza Sagas haven't done a great deal of anything for us. Things have not broken that way. So if we get the Lotus Petal here, that turns on our Mox Opal as well. If we cast this off of the Mox... Okay, they've seen our Painted Servants, unfortunately. So if we cast this Grindstone... So we now have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can cast this Thought Cast. This is probably going to... The problem with casting this Thought Cast is that it might hit into a Pyroblast. They have 1 card in hand. Okay, it didn't hit into a Pyroblast. We can't cast out any of these things though. This game has been a weird one. If we can untap with the Emery, we can start leveraging a lot more stuff here though. We have the Soul Guide Lantern keeping tabs on their graveyard though. So they need to have some action from their graveyard that I can then respond to, which they can then respond to if they want to get anything out of it. But obviously I can't use my Soul Guide Lantern whilst they have the Engineer in play. They have 2 cards in hand, they didn't play anything, so they're just going to be making beatdown tokens here. That would be my assumption. Yep. They're making it now, so they can welder things. This is interesting to me. Like, I have to pop this now. Like, maybe they're just trying to work through it is the thing here. Force of Will. So what's the best thing we can get back out of here? I think it has to be the Lotus Petal because we can't actually activate our Mox Opal right now anyway. I think we just bring back the Lotus Petal. And then we hope this Force of Will is good enough in our opponent's 5 to 7 Pyroblast deck. Okay, so they're activating mana this turn rather than making a token. That doesn't fill me with a great amount of joy. So I have to assume this is getting... Okay, it's getting a Lotus Petal. Okay, so this suggests to me they have the Pyroblast line. No, they didn't have the Pyroblast. Interesting. Lightning Bolt on our guy. Sure. So we're going to take 1 damage. They're just going to bring back the Painted Servant. Well, next time they can just do the thing, can't they? So if we draw a mana source, we're in a very strange situation here where both of us can grindstone each other. Otuara. So both of us have a grindstone available. The issue is they get to grindstone first before my draw step, which is pretty bad for us. So I'm pretty sure they've got us here because they activate this and then they junk it for the Painter's Servant. They can do this at instant speed, so they're probably going to do it in my upkeep. Yeah, so here we go. So they activate this, and they crack the Lotus Petal, and then they swap it out for the Painter's Servant. So we'll mill them for the fun of it, and we also get to see their deck, so I will know which build they're on. Let's have a look. Okay, so I think this is the exact same build that I played the other day, or yesterday I think it was. Yeah, it looks... I can't see the Fury in the main deck though. Oh no, there's one Fury there. Is there a second Fury? Okay, so it's almost identical to the deck we played yesterday. Right, let's sideboard. Step 1, blasts. These seem good. Pithing Needle was something I felt I wanted a fair bit. Surgical Extraction is good against them as well. Force of Negation, I'm not convinced is where I want to be. The Dismembers are good here. Cap Cannoneer is a very good threat. Solar Lantern, Shadow Spear. The thing is, a lot of our deck is quite good in this matchup, so it's tricky. The Force of Will actually seems less good in the face of them having all these Pyroblasts. I don't want to be trading 2 for 1s if I can avoid it. Just going to find 5 more slots here. This is our non-painter plan. So there's always the option of boarding out a load of our Painter's Servants. We can always keep one Painter's Servant in, I suppose, and then relying on their ones. And we can also board lower on Grindstones. So we can threaten them with our Grindstone is the thing. So if we do that, the Emery is probably going to be worse when they're bringing in more Graveyard Disruption. So do we just junk another Emery? That can't be right. Perhaps we junk one of the Opals. Run like this. Right, we'll give this a go. Again, I'm not very well versed in this deck at all. So what do we have here? We have a Blue Blast, we have a Grindstone, we have some Baubles. This is fine. We will... one of the best cards in our deck is the Goblin Welder here. So we want to hold up a bunch of our stuff. I think junking all of our as the Baubles in game 1 was a mistake. So we'll try not to make that mistake next time. We've got the Blue Blast and the Hydro Blast in hand. Great Furnace. Goblin Welder. Can't target red spell. I think we take 1 draw here. Summon Spirit Guide, sure. We'll keep the others for affinity purposes. Okay, so we have a removal spell if we need it. The countering the Engineer is very good here. We do require a bit more mana to get on the board here, so we might want to do something with our baubles. 3 mana. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So I think we just hit this again. And then we're going to look at top card of my library and decide if we need to use the other bauble. We don't need to use the other bauble. So we can play out the Seat of the Synod. That's Mox Opal. And we can... actually no, this can make black mana. So let's use this one. Play out Grindstone. We really need one of our draw effects. We're not quite 8 cast, we're 6 cast. So they can't play Painter's Servant on this board. They may have boarded out their Painter's Servants. Fable of the Mirror Breaker, number 3. I think we just hit this again. They could have a Red Blaster fire back here. Sure. So they get this Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Let's see what else they've got in their hand. They've got Fury. That's a pretty good one to copy. But we do have the Dismember. Okay, so Grindstone, have the Pithing Needle. Our opponent's got 2 cards in hand. So they're going to be spinning things around. I don't think we have a great amount we can do here. Like until we draw one of our business spells, we're kind of just sat on stuff here. That's why I don't particularly like 8 cast decks that much, because you don't have a game plan. You have a load of redraws and you can't plan as effectively. You redraw your cards and they might not be anything. You might just have scraps like what I've got here. So I feel we are behind. I suspect the red painted deck is significantly favoured in this matchup, given that their blasts are very effective as well. Things like Favour the Mirror Breaker are pretty powerful. The Fury here. This is a hard cast Fury. So I think we have to kill this, because the clock that this provides is very, very strong here. We'll take 2 from it instead of taking 6. That seems good to me. Now what? Thoughtcast. 1, 2, 3. So these are basically free if I want to cast them. I don't really know what I want to name with the Pithing Needle just yet. Like, it could be this, but this can't tap for the turn, and if they play something like a welder, I'm going to be wanting to hit that. So I think we just play out the Thoughtcast first. This represents any mana, so we have a blue blast again. So we can blue blast away the Favor of the Mirror Breaker now to stop them getting the flip. But we can do that in their turn. It's a case of do you want to play around a Pyroblast. So if we wait, we might hit something better. We'll have slightly more information, but we do risk running into a blast. So I think it's tricky. Like, what are the main things we want to hit is Furies. So it's Furies, it's Welders, and it's Favor of the Mirror Breakers. So we've already got through 2 of their Furies. I think we can wait on this one, because we can Pity Needle it away, so it's just a 2/2. So if I hit this and they play another Fury, then I'm going to feel very bad. A Soul Guide Lantern doesn't really bother me. We're not playing Graveyard stuff at the moment. They're probably going to get rid of one of our baubles of some description. Sure. Mishra's Bauble. Seat of the Sign-On. So our game plan isn't really doing anything right now. I think we play out this Memory Reflection of Kiki Jiki. So this means they're going to be hitting us with a two a turn with this instead of 2 turn and a treasure. What our opponent doing here? Sozukan. Sure. So they're just trying to beat us down with some medium looking things. They are significantly ahead. Not really much we can do about that right now, unfortunately. We might be in the old manual grind because we don't really have anything else going on. So we could hit one of these with a blue blast, but I think we have to save it for something like this, because this just lets them control everything that's happening on the board. Sure, a 2/2 for 3. I think we're going to draw something rubbish. Blah. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're dead on board. Yuck. Right, GG's. Lightwalker is someone I know from the Paint Discord, and they play an awful lot of Painter. I think they're favouring this matchup, but they're also just better at playing the matchup than me. Right, on to the final round. Right, so I'm on the play here. I can make a turn 1 Emery with Forcible Backup. We'll keep this. We can play out the Urza Saga and start making Saga tokens as early as turn 2, which I like. We can probably also play a Cannoneer out. Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, and whatever we get off this. Put this one out. Bauble. Play out the Opal. Play out the M. We need a blue source. We should play out the Synod here. What am I doing? As a misstep for sure. My bad there. Sorry, I had to see that. This time we get to make this off of this mana, which I think is still totally fine here. So maybe making this, I don't even know if it was an error. I think getting the turn 2 as a Saga was what I wanted there. But thinking I could have it all with the Emery as well was incorrect. So this could be some sort of Bargalurin deck. It could be a Storm deck. We'll see. A Brainstorm. This doesn't tell us anything about what our opponent's playing just yet. Oh my god. I pressed the wrong button and yielded through my turn. Oh, what, I'm an absolute mare today. Sorry about that. Jeez. Okay, so what's happening here? Our opponent's fetching in response because they worried about Pithing Needle on their thing. Sure. So we should have an additional construct here. So what is this one going to go and get? We can just get a draw effect. I kind of want to see what our opponent is doing. We can get a Lotus Petal and cast the Emery, but we can also cast the Emery off the Otawara. So I think we just get the Bauble here. Let's see what we find. Okay, so seeing the Painted Servant now. So this guy can't attack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't want to crack any of the baubles, but if we have to cap a cannon, if we have to use our Force of Will this turn, we will. So yeah, so our opponent should have taken 6 and be dead next turn. But I pressed the wrong yielder button again. Abrupt Decay. So we can't counter this, but we don't want to, so that's fine. Our Cap Cannoneer is better than an Emery. So we can play this playing around Daze, but I don't think our opponent is a Daze deck. They haven't played any sort of tempo plays, but I think they're just going to be on the... They're just going to be on like control-y spells. I suspect this won't resolve. Oh, it did resolve. That's pretty big news for us. 7. So they are dead on board. They're going to have something. It could be Supreme Verdict, which you don't really see it often in the main deck, but their mana base is going to be very difficult for them to cast that, seeing as they've got this Bayou. It's still possible they can cast it though. I think that's what they need to have at this point. They could deal with our construct. Or they could cast a lure in and win the game. Veteran Explorer. Okay, so this is one of those fit decks. Rector fits. Sure. So they can just put their Veteran Explorer under the bus here. Baleful Strix. We can draw a whole load of cards next turn though. Grindstone. 1, 2, 3. So we don't really have the mana to do this. But we can play this. They've seen the Painted Servant in our graveyard, so they already know what we're about. So we play this out, and then we draw some cards with the bauble to make sure we have a blue card for Force of Will. So we don't actually want them to kill it, to Veteran Explorer us, and what we need to do is hit with one. We need to play one artifact next turn, or we can just grindstone them out anyway. So I think we are fine here, despite my earlier mistake. Obviously, the wheels could still fall off at this point. Okay, so I would like to see your hand, please, or a card in your hand at least. Baleful Strix we know about. Catacombs. And a Misty Rainforest. Sure. So we'll draw a load of cards. Okay, look. All of these cards are blue. Can you deal with Kappa Cannoneer? You can have... they can play Swords to Plowshares if they have another mana source. Which is another reason I didn't want the Veteran Explorer to die. Baleful Strix. This doesn't impact what we're doing. Okay, they've scooped it up. So my misclick did not cost us. But it was very irritating and bothered me. Anyway, on to sideboarding. So our opponent is like cast Recruit of the Guard, and they've got the Veteran Explorer, which does make me assume there's some sort of Rector fit deck. So I think Surgical Extractions are probably going to be useful here. The Dismembers are going to be fine. We might need to bounce some permanents at some point. Tricky. Pithing Needle. I kind of feel like Pithing Needle is something I want main deck. But alas. Okay, so do I want the Khan just for more things to do here? Like if we're trading resources, I need to gas back up again. I don't hate that. But then we have to actually remove some cards. Always a tricky thing with a deck like this that's relatively streamlined. Because we're already down on our card advantage stuff anyway, because we had to fit in this combo. So our opponent's probably going to be playing some amount of like Null Roddy type nonsense. So maybe we trim on some of these artifacts. Yes, we get rid of one Mox Opal, one Urza's Bauble, one Lotus Petal, one Mishra's Bauble. Maybe that's totally wrong, but I think we don't want to get stung by this. They're probably going to have a Caracas in their deck, right? But we can't board too low on blue cards either. So maybe we reduce our Painted Servant count. Red was the one colour we didn't see of our opponent. So I think we brought this, or do we keep the Servant in and pitch a Grindstone maybe? Because we can find the Grindstones more easily. Okay, I'm going to submit like this. So this opening hand doesn't seem great. We do have the Force of Will for something, but kind of want the Thought Cast as well. So we can play Urza's Saga, this and this. So this will cost 2 less. So we can cast the Thought Cast on turn 1, right? So 1, 2, 3. No, it would be 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can't cast it on turn 1. I think we should ship this one. Yeah, we don't really want the Shadow Spear on opener. Okay, this one seems a bit more up our street, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so we can... What do we put on the bottom though? The Kappa Cannoneer is going to be good. Maybe we've been the Otawara. That is our only blue. I think we get rid of the Painted Servant actually. If we had a Saga, then it'd be different. That's what our opponent has here. Cabal Therapy. I've got a lot of choices here. Emery, Lurk of the Lock, so that's a swing and a miss. But this is going to power out their Veteran Explorer next turn. So we don't want to draw an island. So at least get some value back off it. So, play this out. If we play out the Seat of the Synod, we have blue mana. One more artifact turns this on. I think we play out the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so we play out the Ancient Tomb and we can still Seat of the Synod next turn. I think that's fine. If we draw any 0 mana artifact, then obviously we're a lot better off mana-wise. Okay, the Misty Rainforest. Okay, so just sculpting away right now. So what do we have? So we have an Aether Spell Bomb, which is essentially cost neutral for casting Thoughtcast. But it does turn on our Mox Opal. So I think we'll play this out. Okay, so that's not really what we wanted to see. We can get a Kappa Cannoneer next turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can play it around days, but I don't think our opponent's a days deck. And I'm not even sure if they're a counterspell deck. Sure. Eternal Witness. Getting back a land. I think we save our Force of Will for... so they don't know we have a Force of Will, but they know we have a Kappa Cannon there. I think we just have to let this hit us. It's a shame. Yeah, so there goes the Kappa Cannoneer. I don't necessarily know if I want to cycle this one or not. So it'll shut off some of our land, but I think we probably need the card here, right? Our hand doesn't go anywhere. I think we need the card here. A Grindstone. That turns back on our Mox Opal if we need it to. So is this. So we can hard cast a Force of Will at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4. Play this out. We can hard cast a Force of Will. Next turn we can play Grindstone, Painter, and crack it, right? 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So if we draw the Painter, we can do it next turn anyway. So there's no point trying to play the Grindstone out this turn. We can hold it in hand in case we draw a Kappa Cannoneer. Recruiter of the Guard. Is it better to Force of Will the thing they get with Recruiter? That's the question. I think we should just Force of Will this. Alright, so we've Force of Willed that. Still not really anywhere with this hand. Just kind of showing why I'm not a big fan of this particular deck. Because you have so many redraws, but you have a lot of air in your deck if you don't have the things. Because like 8 cast has size and it has more thought monitors, so it has slightly less air in it than this deck. Delph Strix, we don't care about this. Okay, so they're cracking their fetch land. Got Underground Sea. I could start manually grinding them, but I don't know if that's worth doing because we know they're a graveyard deck. Because they have Cabal Therapy at the very least. Mishra's Bauble. So we found another redraw, which is something. I think we do it now in case we hit a Force of Will, which we can hard cast because that's what we've got going on. So now they've got Verdant Catacombs. Mishra's Bauble. Do I get a nice card or do I get some more air? They're cracking their Misty Rainforest in response, so they're not going to have this Verdant Catacombs in their hand. Okay, so we have an Emery. So we have a real Magic the Gathering card to cast on our next turn that can start drawing us cards and doing all sorts of lovely stuff. We could also start grindstoning ourselves to make the Emery a lot stronger, which I think is what we're going to do now. So if this hits a Painted Servant, it makes our Emery better. Obviously, if it hits any artifact, it makes our Emery better. Let's cast this. We can bounce into our hand. Yes, we can bounce our own thing here. A hard cast Force of Will. Not expecting that, but sure. Then we play this out. We play out the Tomb, so we can still hard cast Force of Will. And then we keep going. So they are an Alluring deck. So that's some important information to know. Another piece of the puzzle. So they're probably going to have Uro in their deck, which means we should be not grinding them here. So if they have... Okay, so we can Otawara them. Depends what they have in hand, really. We'll return this. At least force them to play out next turn. Now, they could just go off in response here. Okay, they didn't. Sure. It's probably because I'm not representing anything. But we have drawn a Force of Will, which is nice. We're going to keep this 1, 2, 3... Yes, we have to tap an Ancient Tomb anyway. So we're going to keep this in hand in case we draw something like a Cap Cannoneer, because then we can pump it. So this turn we're going to counter the Alluring if they play it. A Brainstorm. I think we let this go. They know we're sort of treading water, I think. Okay, so there it is. Blue, blue, blue. Hardcast Force of Will. Taking some damage to do this. We're not winning this race, but it doesn't take much. Like, we have draw engines, we have... Okay, so here is one such draw engine. Let's dig into our deck and hope we find something. A Painted Servant is very good here, obviously. I'd be surprised if they countered this one. They know what's on top of their deck, so I'm curious as to why they're brainstorming right now. Is this worth pitching a Force of Will just on a Thought Cast? If they have the win next turn, I guess, that's fine. Yikes. Let's see what you're working with. This guy, so that's part of their combo. This allows them to bounce creatures. So they can kind of loop stuff around. So I don't know if I want to grindstone them when they've brainstormed. I don't think that's a good idea. We have the ability to dismember without paying any life. And we've drawn the Force of Will here that we can cast. So that's nice. Cabal Therapy. I think we just let this go. What are we going to name here? Force of Will. Sure. So we lose the Force of Will. Fine. So they have the Alluring. Okay, now whether or not they can combo off this turn still remains to be seen. They know our hand though. The dismember might mean that they can't, because I can kill a creature in response to them trying to bounce it. Kick it, return a creature you control to its owner's hand. Sure. So then this comes into play, and I draw a card. We still have the guy that bounces the guy, and so this guy. So he can draw a card or he can return another non-land permanent. But what they can do is they can bounce this and then return this to their hand and get another card into their deck. So it's not looking especially great for us here. But we could draw Surgical Extraction. That's an interesting one here. So they're saving their guys so they can just bounce a creature at instant speed, which is not the ideal for us. But this is also a 2/2 creature, so they might just be trying to, they might just play a guy out and just start beating us down. That honestly looks fine to me as a plan. Yep, I could have played out their last guy as well. This lets them play creatures with flash, as if they have flash. So I draw a Painter, I can flash it in for free, which is cool. Okay, so let's see what this targets. Draw a card. Okay, sure. This is 2, 4, 5. So this is lethal on board. Ancient Tomb. So we have to hit this now, I think. Now they can have a creature to bounce and save this. But this is the thing we're doing, so we get to play another turn. I think we play this out as well. These Ancient Tombs are basically dead. So we take 1, 2, 3. So the beatdown here is real. And we are struggling a little bit. Uro. This is fine. Which way are they stacking it? Okay, they're stacking it so I don't get a chance to surgically extract it. If they want to cast it immediately. Let's see, here comes the Uro. Yeah, so this isn't in the graveyard right now. It's on the stack instead. So that's to resolve. Our plan here is to draw Painter Servant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can win the game if we draw Painter Servant. Painter Servant. Let's wrap it all up now. Soul Guide Lantern, you say? A little bit late. Guess we cast this. Sure, doesn't really matter. So we can cast Painter Servant for free because of the Allurin. Okay, so we have another draw on our opponent's upkeep to possibly find it. Let's go. So we could have surgically extracted actually to thin our deck. What do you got for me? Kappa Cannoneer. No, we're dead. Let's go to game 3. Alright. So they're just kind of playing out a lot of things, but we know they have a Lurin. So does this make me want to play these Force of Negations? Might be better than the Scion of Urza's. Dismembers don't feel great actually. And then we just need one more cut. I'm not convinced the Dispel Bomb's where I want to be. So let's run this and try and keep the Allurin off the board. We junk one of these for another bauble. Alright, final game of the night. This hand has 2 redraws. So 2 mystery cards and some mana. I don't think I can keep that. This seems a little bit better. We have the combo here on 3 if we necessarily want it. We need to put one of these on the bottom. Shadow Spear is easy to pick. So I think we just play out Seat of the Synod first. And then we can start drawing some cards with Thoughtcast pretty soon. We can also try and play it as a Saga game. But we need some sort of interaction with our opponent. Otherwise they could just Stone Cold kill us on turn 4. Cabal Therapy. So this is probably going to name Force of Will or Emery. Emery Lurk of the Lock, sure. So that's a swing and a miss, but they have full information about my hand. So the next one is going to be better. So if we draw a 0 drop, that'd be nice here. Force of Negation. So if we play out the Seat of the Synod here, that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. So that's not enough for Thoughtcast. If we play out the Painter Servant named Blue, our Force of Negation is online, but their Force of Wills are online. If we play out the Urza's Saga, next time we play the Seat of the Synod, so we have 1, 2, 3 mana, 4, 5 for the purposes of Thoughtcast. That doesn't really take us anywhere unless we want to start making Saga tokens. So I think we probably play out Seat of the Synod into Painter Servant here. And we name Blue, and we hold up the Force of Negation. It does turn on our opponent's force, but we have 8 forces in our deck, and they have 4 most likely. And we have this island that we're pretty happy to ship. So what do we got here? A Ponder. Pretty straightforward. Classic Blue Mage stuff. Okay, so we have a Kappa Cannoneer, which isn't actually the one here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we put out the Saga here. And we cast this. So we use this for mana. We can play out an Opal here. And we can pitch the other one to Force of Negation if needs be. Might as well get one attack in. A Brainstorm. Opponent's untapped. They have a fetch land to shuffle away one of the cards from their Brainstorm. Pernicious Deed. I think this is worth a counterspell. They have a Force of Will. Okay, so this is going to be pretty bad for us. So he's going to immediately take out everything we have. Sure, I think this game is over. I feel like this blue painter deck is lacking a fair bit of stuff here. Alrighty then. What's our opponent got for us? Collector Roof. Yeah, that's another problem. Collector Roof, Pernicious Deed. Our opponent's certainly got our number here. Okay, we're stuck not being able to do anything. Uro, yep, sure. So, this is looking awkward. An Urza's Bauble that we can't do anything with because of the Collector Roof, but it does make our Thoughtcast cheaper. So it is worth casting here. So this is 1, 2, 3. Which is still not enough to cast Thoughtcast, but it's getting there. So our opponent could kill us this turn with an Alurin. No, they're just going to play the Uro. So they're just going to try and kill us with regular damage, which is going to be relatively rudimentary for them to do. Elementary even. Yeah, so we're in Danger Town here. So we have a Force of Negation, which doesn't do anything. So our opponent got a 4-for-1 with the Pernicious Deed, so I don't really think there's much we can do. Force of Negation doesn't work on Abrupt Decay. So we've got, what, 2 more turns? Not sure what we can draw here. It's going to have to be good. Oh, they got a spell on our turn as well. Abeyance. Abeyance! Wow. You don't see that every day. Like, go one more draw step. Surgical Extraction. I think we are dead here. We're just going to concede so I can go to bed. I think this is not great. Let's have a look at the deck as well when we're done. So this is the deck. My thoughts on it, not great really. Essentially what the deck seems to have done is take an 8-cast deck and then they've removed the things that make the 8-cast deck work. So the size and the other thought monitors, which help the deck just sort of tick along. So those have gone in favour for a combo that doesn't do anything by itself. Now, having the Emery to pull back these bits and pieces, that seems really good to me. I like that. That's certainly an effective way. You dig 4 cards, you can bring back your combo pieces, and obviously we have Urza Saga to find the Grindstone. But this Painted Servant, I drew it a lot without it doing anything, to be honest, which wasn't helpful. And we just had lots of these 0 drops, so we're just cantripping 0 drops to try and find something. And you get all these really horrible hands that could go somewhere or could go nowhere. I don't particularly like having to keep an opening hand that is essentially has a bunch of random cards in it. That's not really great for me. So you kind of have to mulligan to some sort of action like Emery, but it felt like a single bolt here and there was able to shut down the Emery plan, which just left me drawing 1 card a turn, trying desperately to find something to do. So I just didn't feel this deck had the raw power. I think if you want to play Painted Servant in a blue deck, I don't think you want to just take the 8-cast shell and slap in Painter. I think you want to build from the ground up and build a blue Painter deck. I think you want your Hydroblast and Blue Blast, especially since if you look at the best decks in the format, Blue-Red Delver, Reanimator, you're not going to hit many things, but you might be able to hit a Faithless Looting. So not really getting it there. Death and Taxes. That's not, you're not going to hit anything there, but neither is the Red Blast in Red Painter. Mono Red Prison, you're going to be able to hit loads of stuff with Blast and that. Selesnya Depths, which usually has, well, it's usually Naya Depths now, so you can at least hit Minsk and Boo in that, so you've got a little bit more room for hitting something with that one as well. Red Painter is probably one of the top sort of 6 to 8 decks at the moment as well, so you can hit a lot of stuff in that. So where the things that the Pyroblast will hit over this is like sort of some of the control-y decks and 8-cast and things like that, which you won't be able to hit. But you will conversely be able to hit Red Painter and the Prison decks. So I think just playing like a Painter Servant deck from the ground up with Blue Blast and things is actually going to be good here. Like, I think there is definitely something to be built. I feel the Kappa Cannoneers would have been better if they were Thought Monitors here, because I just needed to sort of dig into my deck and do something. But I think there's definitely a blue Painter Servant deck to be built. I know this list is pretty close to one that did quite well in the challenge, I think. So, this deck obviously has legs. If you draw the right bits, it's going to be pretty good. But it felt like it had some significant weaknesses in that I obviously suffered from a little bit today. I don't think it's like anywhere near as consistent as the Red Painter decks or as powerful, but its B plan is obviously a lot better because Urza Saga is just a very good B plan. And Kappa Cannoneer is pretty good. I do think having 4 is greedy though. But yeah, I think Blue Painter works. This is not what I would play for a Blue Painter deck, for sure. I would definitely play something a bit more blasty and doing other bits and pieces. So I might try that in a couple of weeks. I might see if I can brew like from the ground up a little Blue Painter deck that runs things like the blasts in main and just sort of tries to leverage the Painter a little bit more instead of just having this dead card in the middle of your deck that needs velocity. Because you've got all these cards that kind of don't do anything. They don't impact the game. But, yes, you can draw cards with them and, you can pump a Kappa Cannoneer in play, but they don't necessarily do anything on their own. And you're left with a lot of these and nothing to do with them sometimes. So I think there's definitely a more streamlined version of this deck if you want to be a dedicated Painter deck to play. And if you want to play this sort of stuff, just play 8-cast. The deck's really good. I think it's just a better shout. Sideboard-wise, it felt quite difficult for me to sideboard with this deck at times because you've kind of jammed 2 decks together, so there's very little breathing room. And if you take anything out, you can kind of stop one half of the deck working. So I'm not sure about that either. But yeah, so this is the second Painter deck for the week. And it's a no from me, I'm afraid, on this one. I can see how you can win games with it. I can see how if you thread the needle nicely, you can win. But I think you're going to lose a lot of games due to the deck construction of this, where you could definitely build a Blue Painter deck that is better at Painter, or just an 8-cast deck which is just going to be better 8-cast deck. Anyway, that's it from me today. Before you click close on this window, why not give me a subscribe? I could do with the followers. It doesn't cost you a penny. All it does is just say that you're interested in my content and you won't miss anything, especially if you love Painter, because we've got 3 more Painter videos coming up after today. So, and I also do quite often regular Painter videos because I'm an active member of the Painter Discord. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.